Okay.
Thank
Eva, can you start by maybe could you tell a tiny bit about yourself?
Okay.
Because you're from Austria. So tell where you're from and.
Well, I'm not a native. I was born in Florence, Italy, Fiorentina.
Yeah.
And then my mother took me to Austria. She was Austrian. My father was not. My father was German, from the Rhineland,
Yeah.
half German, half French.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
so then when I was about 22, something like that, I went with my husband. We had married in Austria, in Vienna, because I was at the university there. And we got married and went to Mexico. He was of Mexican parentage, but he was born in Arizona. That's why he was in the army, the US Army.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Mexico to meet his people and to learn Spanish and the culture. And that was a good experience.
What did you study when you were in college?
Well, first I studied law. First year of law is just the the code of the church and the Roman law. But I found out from my husband that it doesn't do me any good because it's a very different system here, a law system. So I stopped and went to humanities. And there I studied German, English, and history.
And then you went to Mexico after finishing. You got married and finished.
I didn't know. I never finished it because we had to go, the army contract was up and goodbye.
Uh-huh.
But I used this same records to get into the University of Berkeley. Because of course, when they saw, she was already in a university, I didn't have to. Well, I had to do the TOEFL, it's an examination in English.
Yeah.
And that was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you happen to come to Beth Israel?
Well, see, we wanted to have a good religion, something that tells us about the law of God, and that's what we did. We went to all those churches around us, and it wasn't right. It wasn't what we wanted. The one God idea was what attracted us, the all-powerful.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And so you came.
So we went, well, first we had gone to Hillel, and learned just what was it about. And when I heard the lecture of Rabbi Leibowitz on the Bible, my husband didn't go with me. He sent me there
Uh-huh.
and left me there alone. And when I came back, I said, yes, Mike, that's the right religion.
Huh.
So, I thought your husband might have thought he was a converso because of his name. Is that not the right story? No, no.
Could be,
Mm.
but he didn't, he didn't base it on this.
Okay, my mistake then. Okay, we'll go another
But
way.
he was curious. But how did you get curious about your name and your ancestors?
Oh,
Because you were from Austria?
no, that was much later.
Oh,
When I was in the university, that was not until 66.
yeah,
And I had all my kids.
yeah.
Then I started asking, Kurz, what is this?
Your maiden name.
Right.
Yeah, Kutz. Yeah,
And it could be, I have no definite proof. It didn't matter to me
right.
because I said, well, if it is, fine. If it's not,
Fine.
fine too.
So then you went to Israel? You went to Israel?
Yeah, we both went to Israel. But that wasn't until 83.
All right, so let's backtrack.
Okay, so you came to Berkeley. By then you had 5 children.
Right.
So tell how many kids you had and what you did before you went to Israel.
Well, we lived in Hayward. My husband was a bridge painter of the Bay Bridges. And that's how we made out. That's how I earned his living. And Hayward, we had a house, a GI house. And we did fine. And then they transferred him to Oakland Bay Bridge.
Uh-huh.
He was in the Dumbarton Bridge. That's near Hayward. Well, we looked for housing, and we did find a house suitable. We looked for 6 months.
And you were going to Beth Israel all this time?
Oh no,
No, no.
Yeah.
no. See, that was in Hayward. It was too far away from everything.
So then you found a house in Berkeley, the one you're in?
Right.
So you found the house. And then what happened? You started your search for a church or a synagogue.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Almost immediately.
Almost immediately.
Because we wanted to know how to bring up the kids. Somehow what we had didn't make it. There were too many holes in it that we didn't understand.
Uh-huh. I
So
understand.
that's how it happened.
So that's how it happened. And then what made you go to Israel? Was after you converted?
Yeah, well, I had a very good job. I had gotten a promotion, and now, after the promotion, I was working in Caltrans again, but this was the large laboratory, the chemical testing and all that was going on there. And yeah, I had a very good job.
So you worked and he worked, and then you decided to go see Israel.
Right.
How long were you there?
7 years.
With the kids?
No, the kids were all grown up, but
Oh my.
they had jobs.
Uh-huh. And how was it for you in Israel?
It was very nice.
Yeah? How'd you come back? Why'd you come back?
Well, I was scared. There was this air war going on. And with my experience before, I was just simply scared to bits.
You mean you were afraid from World War II? You remembered all of that?
Right. And then, as I said in the car, World War II left me buried under a 4-story building, and they dug us out. And there were 89 people in there. 6 came out alive.
Uh-huh. And you were one of the 6.
I was one of the 6. I was wounded, and the ear doctor, you know, the one that fitted my hearing aid, she said, "Have you ever had a real bad hit on the head?" I said, "Yeah, I can tell you this side. That's the bad side." So she said, "There you have it. There's the reason."
Oh, from the war.
Right.
Ah.
So,
So when it happened in Israel, you were very frightened.
yes, be quite frank. Then my mother was with me because, you see, when she was in Austria, she was very ill and they didn't treat her. There was a reason. She was supposed to, well, my uncle had died and he had a testament, but it wasn't for the people that wanted it. So the people that wanted it went to court and they gave her all sorts of troubles. So I said, "Come with me." And the trouble she had, her feet had enlarged so much that she couldn't get into any shoes.
Oh dear.
And so the Israeli doctor we had cured her within 4 weeks. And the big doctor in Austria hadn't been able to. So
Yeah,
I didn't quite buy it.
yeah. So your time there was good. But
Yeah.
the war, the fighting scared you when you came back here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I came back with her because where was she supposed to go?
Yeah. I understand. And then you became more active in Beth Israel. When you came back.
When I came back for a while, yes. But then, you know, I went back to Sacramento with my husband. We bought a place up in the Sierras, and that's where we stayed. And my mother was very ill. She had Parkinson's,
Mm-hmm.
and she died of it. I took care of her until she did.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing.
And then you came back again after your husband died.
Yeah, for a while. But then I went to Sacramento to stay with my son, to help him out.
Like a mother. Right?
Can't deny it.
Yeah.
Can't deny your feelings.
Right. You can't deny them. And so now, what do you think about Beth Israel? The way it's changed.
It's nice.
Yeah. Can you say that? Can you just say?
See, the Sephardi element, we were in a Sephardi synagogue all the time when we were in Israel.
Uh-huh. So can you make a sentence that doesn't have my question in it, so that it says what you think about Beth Israel in terms of how it's changed or how it is,
Well,
what part it has in your life?
Yeah, it has changed, but it hasn't changed that radically. It's still an Orthodox synagogue. And that's what we were after.
Uh-huh.
But then in the meantime, my husband died.
Yeah.
He had this blood disease, you know, cancer of the blood.
Uh-huh.
Because, you see, all this time in Dumbarton, he worked with lead paint.
Oh.
And then they didn't understand that lead paint caused cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the sad story, that he died of it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't die according to the death certificate, he didn't die of the cancer, but it weakened his system, and he got a pneumonia, and that was it.
Yeah. That's important.
Is there a story about your father? Your father was an artist, and they named.
Yes.
You want to tell us that story?
Oh yes, he was an
Can you
expressionist.
just say my father was? Just start the sentence. My father was.
Oh, my father was an expressionist, and he had an unbelievable number of artwork.
By the name Kunz.
No, he wasn't married to my mother.
Yeah.
But his name was Wingen.
And what happened?
Well, you see, he was, for one thing, an expressionist. That already put him into the bad books of the Nazis. But then he never knew how to not say the truth. So when he talked about Hitler, that wasn't so good. He said that the contracts that Hitler had with Russia had never been kept. That's one thing he said. But he also said that he was half French. And that was the big crime. They called it, oh, he's a spy for the French. But then later on, he talked to an SS man on the train. And again, he didn't keep it in. So in 1944, they dragged him off to Poland. And there they killed him. I asked one of the people that was imprisoned with him, and he said they gave him typhus shots. I said, typhus shots? Yes, live typhus.
Oh dear.
That's what killed him. And my grandmother, she was the only one he was allowed to write to. My grandmother had this letter where he describes the misery he was in, the bodily misery.
But was he then honored later? Did they honor your father? Did they name a street after your father? Or does I have that story wrong?
Oh yes, they did.
Okay, can you tell us that story? How
Yes,
that happened?
they named a street after him in Kempen. Kempen on the Rhine. That was his birthplace. No, not his birthplace, but, you know, his growing up place.
Because of his artwork? Why did they do that? Why did they honor him?
Yes, because of the artwork that was all over Germany, all over France, all over Netherlands.
Huh.
Does the family still have some of the artwork?
Oh yes, yes. And you know, it's also on Google.
It's on Google. Huh. So the family has some artwork, but how old were you when he died?
49.
49.
It was in 40. No,
It was in 44.
44.
He died in 44.
44.
But you were 49 at that time?
No, he was.
He was 49.
Yeah.
How old were you?
About 18, 17, 18, something like that. 17, yeah, because it was in 44. But I was already hit. I had to, really live with that injury.
So,
And every time there was a attack by air, I went off my rocker.
So you had already been buried under the house by then, and you were recovering from that.
Yes.
So did your father's arrest affect your family? I mean, obviously, but he was gone and that affected your family. But were you under surveillance? Were you suspect also?
I am not sure. It could be. I was still in high school.
Yeah. It's hard. You had a hard time.
Yeah, I don't know. But then I was compensated. I had a good marriage.
Ah, that's great. That's great. You found your place.
Right.
Yeah.
And Judaism in your life, would you say it's done what you hoped it would do for you?
Yes, because like last night I felt very bad. I prayed out of the little siddur
Uh-huh.
and it all fell off me.
Wonderful.
So I know I got in touch with him.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What else could we tell? What else could we tell people that would be interesting that you think of?
Hard to say, there were so many interesting things.
Yeah.
I went back to school in '66 when we got to Berkeley,
Yeah.
and I studied Spanish, I studied German literature, and I got a BA in that. And later on I joined the library school and I got an MLS in '70.
Wow.
And with that I was able to get a job. And of course the Spanish helped, because if you knew Spanish, it was easier to get a job.
Yeah. It's a wonderful experience, huh?
If that lawnmower next door is a little bit.
You're hearing it?
But what can we do? Nothing.
Yeah. Can't do anything.
Right. What else?
I'm trying to think what else we could know about. I'm trying to think, Eva, what else makes it interesting for the synagogue?
Yeah, right.
You were here pretty early in the synagogue, though, when Leibowitz was there.
Yeah, right.
So he was only the second rabbi.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You liked what he said.
Yes. He had a lecture
Leibowitz.
on the Bible
Yeah.
that I attended in Hillel. I told you about.
Yes.
And yes, that finally made me understand the Bible. I hadn't understood it before,
Uh-huh.
to be quite frank with you. I should have, perhaps, but I didn't.
Everyone has a long path.
Yeah, because, see, all I knew was the New Testament, and somehow it didn't make sense.
Uh-huh. Did you ever explore the origins of Mike's name?
Yes, but, I didn't do it in depth.
Right.
I didn't do it in depth. That was wrong. But I had so much to do that. But yes, Santos Caro came from Spain. He had a land grant. Why he had the land grant, I could not find out. But there must have been a reason. And the name Santos is kind of funny, because usually Spanish people will name a boy after a saint, but Santos, saints. So that stumped me.
It raises the question of the origin of the name.
And then I found a casual note in the Inquisition papers in the Library of Congress. on the other grandfather, whose name was Renteria.
Venturia. Yeah.
And the Inquisition papers didn't say much except that it was, you know, negative.
Yeah, why would he have been brought in front of the Inquisition? Why would the Inquisition even have his name if it wasn't some Jewish?
Yeah, there must have been something.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
It's so interesting how people come to
Isn't
this,
it?
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it
It's
interesting
amazing.
how these two lives came together
right,
like this? Yeah. Are you getting chilly? A
it's
little.
getting a little cold.
Yeah. So, do
Good
we know
stuff.
how you met your husband? Do we
How'd you meet Mike?
Yeah.
Hmm?
How did you meet your husband?
You laugh. We both went to the same lecture. And the lecture was on the psychology of criminals. Because you see, Mike worked for the justice system. Let's see, what was it called? Huh. Stumps me.
For the army.
For the army, yeah,
For the U.S. Army.
U.S.
And
Army,
this was
Okay.
in Vienna? Where was this? In Vienna?
in Vienna.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went both to that lecture on the university. And you see, I belonged to a group that went out together and got tickets for concerts and what have you, anything worthwhile watching. And, well, the girl that usually got us the standing places, you know, well, she couldn't get one. So I was hollering from my seat to her in the front. I said, "Did you get the tickets?" Whatever it was, I don't remember. And she said, "No, they were out of them." He turns around. Now, I had seen him before, and I liked him, but of course it was not right to, make any kind of approachment. So he said, "Would you go with me if I had the tickets?"
And you said,
I said, "Yes." And that was it.
that's wonderful.
So
Very
you
much.
spoke English?
Pardon
You
me?
spoke English?
Oh, yes. Yes.
How many languages do you speak?
Well, not so good anymore. I used to speak Russian, that I lost, even the writing, because I never used it. Then, of course, Austrian German, the other German, and French, Italian from home. And what else? And Hebrew I learned in. Yeah.
Goodness. You were busy.
That was fun, I hated math. I was very poor in math.
But the other stuff you loved.
Yeah,
It's great.
which was funny, because the math helped me later on when I was a librarian. And it didn't give me any trouble. I don't know why I had so much trouble in school. I guess I didn't see any reason for it.
It's amazing. It's very interesting. Was there anything else that you think? Can you think of anything else we should say? What about your kids? How do you feel they're doing?
Yeah, they're doing fine.
Who's doing fine?
Well, Mary, I don't know if you know her. Oh, yeah. She has a shop. Yeah. A hair shop.
Uh-huh.
She always liked doing hair. Ever since she was a tiny kid.
Uh-huh.
Her dolls all ended up with no hair at all. Then the other one, that's John, that's the second one. He's got a huge jewelry shop that he designs jewelry. and he's doing quite well
Where?
in Virginia, Woodbridge. He married a good businesswoman, so lucky for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and as I said, Willie, the one I live with, well, he is a weapons expert, weapons and special knives. So,
There's two more.
and Vincent, Vincent he's still doing it at times, photographer. But now he's got a new job that is kind of interesting. He went to school for it. He, designs the computer processes
Uh-huh.
for factories.
Uh-huh.
So, and then there's Conrad, it's the youngest. He's a computer technology.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they're all doing okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Again, tell me your father's name again. What was his
Wingen,
Wing.
Wingen,
That.
Gottfried Wingen.
How do you spell that?
Wingen, and you can find him on Google.
Can I find his picture? Can I find any of his work on Google?
Yes, on Google you will find the
So we
work.
could put that
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have some artist children.
Yeah, the second one, the one that designs jewelry.
Yeah.
I got your father's talent. Okay. Well.
Okay.
All right.
Now that she's thoroughly chilled.
Yeah. Right.